I'm going to explain this process in 5 steps. If you master these 5 steps, you will gain the highest level of consciousness. Level 1 is what I call NPC mode, a non-player character. Let's take a video game. You meet these characters in the game that have no one controlling them, but they still have a script. But these people aren't being controlled by themselves, being controlled by a program. They're doom scrolling. They're sucking on a vape. They're dating people they shouldn't be dating. You know, where you ask someone who's in a toxic relationship, a good woman, why are you doing this? I don't know, he's nice. I believe everyone's first spiritual awakening is when they escape NPC mode, when they realize, okay, I'm doing things aren't my highest interest. We're going from NPC mode to God mode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the New Age Sage podcast. Today, we're going from NPC mode to God mode. What does that mean? NPC mode is essentially you're being run by an unconscious script in your mind you have no idea about. Your behaviors and your habits and your addictions are reflexive and you have no control over them. Therefore, you are a walking program. There is no you in control. It's just your pain, your trauma dictating your behavior. You're on your phone doom scrolling constantly. You're crashing out on people for no reason. You're dating people you don't want to date. You hate your life. That's an NPC programming. Now, God mode is a mode where there is no mind. The character's gone. You are now everything. You are now all of consciousness. Everything in the universe is now you. Instead of being a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean. So that may sound completely unrealistic and insane, but let me cook for a second. So I'm going to begin by explaining what exactly NPC mode is in more detail, and then gradually how we can move from there to self-realization. And self-realization is just embodying awareness, right? Right now, there are your thoughts that you think are you, and then there's the awareness behind it. When you deeply meditate, you become the awareness, you become the everything. When you start watching your thoughts float, how can you be your thoughts if you can watch them? If they disappear in 5 seconds, what remains? Awareness. And what self-realization teaches is that when you are actually that awareness, then life begins. Then you're no longer being programmed by your own unconscious and your own and society's conditioning. Okay. Let me begin by explaining NPC mode. So step 1, these are 5 stages of awakening. Okay. I'm going to explain this process in 5 steps. If you master these 5 steps, you will gain the highest level of consciousness. Okay. Level 1 is unconscious reality, what I call NPC mode. All right. So when you're in NPC mode, what that means is you're a non-player character. Okay. So if we're in let's take a video game. Okay. I don't really play much, but there's one's called RPGs, right? Role player games, where you are essentially the main character in a game. I think maybe, I don't know, Elden Scrolls, The Witcher. I don't know many games like this, but they're popular, okay? Or even GTA story mode. You're essentially embodying a character you're controlling, right? You're playing the character you're controlling, but then you meet these characters in the game that have no one controlling them, but they still have a script. They still interact with you. They still have reactions, right? But these people aren't being controlled by themselves, being controlled by a program, right? They're programmed to react a certain way, but in reality, they have no control over their programming. They just react and exist, right? There's no one home. There's literally no one home, okay? So branching out that theory to the present moment, when someone's doing things that I can observe or you can observe aren't the best, they're not great. This person has no clue why they're doing them or that they're bad, right? I think of, I'll call myself out. Okay, back when I was in NPC mode, I think everyone has to just be in the state of consciousness. When I was sucking on a vape, on a Juul, jerking off to porn, and scrolling on my phone all day when I was young, I had no idea what I was doing. It was just happening, right? I would see weed, I would see a bong, I'd just walk up there and there'd be no thought of like, why am I smoking weed? Why am I grabbing a beer at 2 p.m? Why am I, doing God knows what with the powder on a table? So that there was no thinking in that. It just happened, right? A woman liked me. I liked her. We dated. There was no it just happened, right? So most people are just existing in a life they have no idea. They have no idea over, right? They're doom scrolling. They're sucking on a vape. They're dating people they shouldn't be dating. Or you ask someone who's in a toxic relationship, a good woman, why are you doing this? I don't know. He's nice. So I hope you get what I'm saying here is that most people are engaged. So everyone's life essentially is a pattern of behaviors, right? Addictions and pain abating techniques that we reflexively engage with to erase our pain. So scrolling, um, eating shitty food, everyone has behaviors that they engage in that they just do reflexively, right? So if you get up to pee in the middle of the night, you just walk and you pee, you don't think about it, you just pee. So when you're in NPC mode, your whole life is a concoction of behaviors that you engage in that you have no idea why. They just happen. All right. And to expand more my own journey of addiction, right? I would just smoke weed. I have no idea why. I was sitting there bored. I just grab a joint and smoke it. I was sitting there lustful. I just text a girl. It just happened. So, or, I'd be playing basketball and someone would be slightly aggressive. I would crash out on them and elbow them. I'd talk shit. I'd get yelled at them, and then the game would end, and I'd forget about it. It just would happen. So, and this is exemplified the dating world of people who keep picking bad partners, and they don't know why. It just keeps happening. So, to summarize, NPC mode is you're doing things that aren't in your highest interest, and you have no idea why at all. And most of the time, you don't even know it's wrong. Right? When you tell an NPC who's sucking in a vape, hey, you shouldn't be sucking in a vape. They're like, huh? You tell me this vape is bad for me? Who would have thought? Whatever. And they keep sucking the vape. There's no one home. Like, they're sucking a vape. If you're sucking a vape, you're an NPC. Because you're engaging in a compulsive behavior that you don't even know it's bad for you. If you truly knew it was bad for you, you'd stop doing it. All right. So most humans are stuck at level 1, which is NPC mode, which means your unconscious, your shadow, the parts of yourself you're not aware of are controlling your life to stop feeling pain, right? You don't want to feel your shame. You watch porn all the time. You don't want to feel like you're fat. You starve yourself. So, but we don't know. They don't know these things. They just happen. We're just stuck in a simulation, right? Or you're in a relationship and even an argument, and you just get angry and then an hour passes. You're like, why the f did I do that? You were stuck in NPC mode. So to escape level 1, we got to stop being an NPC. And when you stop being an NPC, is that you stop doing things reflexively. Reflexive action it just happens, and you're just like in a rush, and you don't know what's going on underneath. Okay, so we can't expand consciousness if we're stuck in reflexive behaviors, because most reflexive behaviors are an escape mechanism for processing our own fear, our own shame, our own guilt, or grief. So that's level 1. But at base level, we got to escape NPC mode. Okay, now we're moving to level 2. Level 2 is being aware of your patterns, but still stuck in pain. Okay, so you're in NPC mode, and I believe everyone's first spiritual awakening is when they escape NPC mode, when they realize, okay, I'm doing things that aren't my highest interest. Sucking this vape, being a promiscuous person, drinking a lot, being in a desk job I hate. Once you realize these things, it's soul crushing, because you're like, how the f have I been doing these things for so long, and I have no balls to even discover why or to change them. So then a person who leaves NPC mode quickly realizes this is not the life I want to be living, and you know that, okay, to move by this, I have to figure out why I'm doing this. Why am I addicted to porn? Why am I addicted to vape? Why am I drinking so much? Why am I doing drugs all the time? Why am I going to clubs every weekend? Why am I sleeping with random people? Why? That's where therapy comes in. All right. So level 2 is you're aware of your patterns, but you're still stuck in pain. So maybe you're going to therapy. You're taking a psychedelic, right? Mushrooms will snap you out of NPC mode in 5 seconds. You take that thing, you're out of NPC mode. You start seeing everything. That's why people who suddenly take mushrooms, which is why I don't recommend them just willy-nilly, under good guidance, they're useful. But if an NPC takes a mushroom out willy-nilly, then they become aware. They see all their pain. They see their self-numbing techniques, and it's fucking painful. You sit there being like, holy shit, I've been an NPC for so long. So that's the psychedelics. Let's move to therapy, which is the most popular. Therapy is the most popular way of moving from NPC mode to some level of awareness. So when you go to therapy, you quickly see, oh, I'm chasing, for example, using women, I'm chasing men because my father didn't give me validation. Okay, so my actual unconscious pain of my childhood of needing validation from my father has been dictating my life by me chasing men who don't want me. Then the awareness kicks in. Then you're like, holy shit, I didn't know that. And you realize I was being an NPC. My whole life I was living a pattern I didn't know existed. Okay? Now, you become aware of that. I'm going to use the romantic example. Let's use someone with anxious attachment. Okay? A woman realizes her father wasn't present the way she wanted to. She didn't get his validation. So then she becomes attractive, beautiful, and sexually alluring in her adulthood. And she then she dates men in a way that she needs validation. She needs to know that they'll pick her, they'll choose her. So she's stuck in the loop of constantly dating, texting tons of guys, going on tons of dates, sleeping with a ton of guys because she needs her validation because her center is being outsourced to male validation because her inner girl, her little girl inside her, feels starved of love. And that little girl wants to know she's worthy, so she needs male validation, okay? Now, that pattern then becomes aware of itself. You can see yourself being like about, you receive a text from a guy you know doesn't love you but wants to sleep with you. And then you sit there being like, this guy is messaging me, okay? You're aware of it, right? Before you would have answered, oh, come here, and you would have forgiven all his bad behavior. But now you're aware of it, okay? So this is where things get tricky, right? I'll use myself here. My journey has been continuously going from anxious attachment to secure attachment. I believe I'm mostly secure now, thankfully, but at moments, the anxious attachment will come up, right? And that is abandonment. I lost my mother. I had a childhood where I felt abandoned. I don't know if I was exactly or not, but I felt that way. And so that makes me deeply afraid of loss. So whenever there's a threat in my relationship, my partner's angry at me in the past, or we're in a fight, or I say something I shouldn't agree with, my first instinct traumatically is to then go to, is she going to leave me? And then I get afraid and anxious and I start, running. So to like make sure to chase, I start chasing, right? So when you're in NPC mode, that chasing is done reflexively. There's no awareness. When you're aware, it's deeply painful because you sit there being like, holy shit, I'm going crazy for this person's validation. So that is where things get tricky. You're aware you shouldn't be doing X, right? You're aware you shouldn't be chasing the man or woman who don't have your best interest in mind, okay? So then it gets tricky because you get triggered. You're aware of the trigger, you know it's happening, and you don't want to take that path. So you essentially feel like there's two people in your head. There's the version of you who wants to take the path of reflexive, pain-abating numbingness. Whether that be, running after the guy who doesn't like you, eating the cheeseburger, or not eating anything, or, sucking on a vape. When you're aware that you shouldn't be doing something that is not in your highest interest, you're breaking NPC mode, but you're also beginning to fight yourself. Okay? So in these moments, it feels like there's two people in your head. So using myself here, right? So now, if I tell my partner something, it's the truth that she's not going to like hearing, but she has to hear. Most of the time now, I just say it and it's whatever. It's truth. She has her process. I have my process, especially hearing her truth as well. Moments, I can say it and she'll get reactive, not like, aggressive or anything, but she'll get sensitive. And then she'll get, have to take space to process that. There are times where I get anxious, like, oh my God, is she not going to love me? Is she going to leave me? That's not me. That's the part of me, the little kid in me, or the 23-year-old who lost his mother, who's terrified of abandonment. So in that moment, when I was stuck in level 2, I would start fighting that part of me. I would say, what the I shouldn't be here. Why am I triggered by this? I'm such a loser. I'm a pussy. Why am I being triggered by this little thing? What the And you start getting angry at yourself, you start hating yourself, you start shaming yourself. And then it's just like you're literally fighting yourself. You're fighting a part of you inside your head. The part of you that wants to numb, the part of you that's in pain, you start fighting it. You start getting angry at it. Why the am I triggered? Why am I so angry? What's going on here? And you start fighting yourself. That's level 2. So before you were just in NPC mode. You were literally doing things to numb yourself with no awareness. They're just happening reflexively. Now you're aware of it and you don't like it. You don't like the fact that you get triggered and you don't want to keep numbing yourself. This is where things get interesting. Then, this is the juiciest part of this whole process, is that when you know you shouldn't do something, you shouldn't text that person, you shouldn't let them back in your house, you shouldn't answer their call, you shouldn't run after them, and you do it anyway, that's when shit gets real. That's when you're faced with yourself. That's when you're seeing yourself as truly the person, when you know you could have taken the better path and you didn't. That's where shame comes in. That's where guilt comes in. That's where really punch yourself in the face comes in. So this part is frustrating. It's brutal. I've been there. In the initial stages of my marriage, when we first met, I had to clear a lot of shit from my childhood, a lot of trauma, patterns I never had to face. And there were times where I did what I knew I shouldn't have done over and over again. I sat there in a bucket of shame. I slept 2 hours on those nights like that, where I sat, punching myself in the face, being like, how the could you have done that, Lucas? You knew better. Why'd you do this? And I sat in that bucket of shame. Now, I'm not going to recommend that in the next parts of the process. It's not the way. Okay? But it's a necessary part of evolution, because you realize that my fate is in my hands. And, I do believe in non-duality. I do believe that there is no ego. We're all one, but it's also not true, right? That yes, we're all one, but in this dimension, we're in this egoistic human body, and in this human body, we have to use free will as a way to reach the highest level. So when you're stuck in NPC mode, when you're stuck in shame, when you're stuck in pain, you can use that as a way to expand in consciousness, right? So like your own spiritual evolution is in your hands, right? So I believe that spiritually, your higher self designed your life with certain catalysts, experiences, romantic partners, jobs, all in the potential of waking you up, right? Your higher self wants to shake you into awakening. And where free will comes in is that things will happen the way they'll happen. That's predestined. Your reaction to what's occurring is your free will. So if you attract, like me, I attracted the love of my life, my wife, my soulmate, and my ego didn't want to accept it because I was so afraid of losing her, I would then self-sabotage and do things that weren't in our highest interest to prove to myself she's going to leave me. Right? So I'd crash out, get angry over things that don't matter, just to make sure that she would stay. Just like, if she hates me, is she going to leave? Like that, sitting there for 2 hours, sleeping 2 hours in a bucket of shame. That had to happen because I had to look at myself and say, I did this. I created this. I knew I shouldn't engage in that pattern, yet I still did. Humans you have to sit with that. It's not fun, it's ugly. I'm not recommending being in a bucket of shame, but I'm saying it's part of the process, right? Because it makes you discover that you could have taken the higher road, right? And shame isn't useful here, right? Shame at its core is I am a mistake. Guilt or feeling bad is more so I made a mistake. So a bucket of shame isn't useful, but a little bit of guilt is worth it, because you have to realize that I made a mistake, okay? And that's important because you realize that this is really in my hands, right? I can choose to engage in the patterns of trauma I've always engaged in. That's familiar. Or I can choose to take the higher road. And taking the higher road, once you do it, feels really good, right? The most beautiful moments of my life are when I see a path that's rooted in my trauma, in a trigger, in satiating my pain and numbing out. Engaging in a toxic pattern I know I shouldn't do. And it's so tempting. It seems so delicious. I do the opposite. I choose the higher road. And I every time I do that, I feel God. I feel beauty. I feel divinity. Because I've gone beyond my ego. I've gone beyond my human limitation. I've gone into the infinite. I've overcome my human karma. That moment is glory. Glory isn't winning a fight or winning a basketball game or winning, charades, or your favorite character in a reality show finally wins. Glory is when you were about to take the path of familiarity, where you were going to engage in the same bullshit, the same toxic patterns that have kept you where you've always been. And you got triggered and you saw, I'm not taking this path. I'm taking the higher road. I know I can't be doing this. When you take that road over and over again, that's where glory comes in. Because you'll look back at that and say, wow, I've come a long way. Okay, so to summarize level 2. When you're level 2, you're aware of your patterns. You're aware that you shouldn't be doing something, but you're still stuck in the pain. You're still stuck in the trigger. You're fighting yourself. You're hating yourself. You're shaming yourself. That's level 2, where you know you shouldn't be taking a path, but you're still stuck in the trauma, in the trigger, in the pain, right? So for those with anxious attachment in your relationship, you want to just like make sure they love me. They have to tell me they love me. I need to hear they love me. They're being avoidant. What do I do here? You sit with yourself and you're like, I can't use them to satiate this. I have to face this. Having to face it is the second level, where you face the pain that's been causing you to numb yourself, right? You face it. But in facing it, it's painful. And it causes shame because sometimes you don't want to face it. And you know you shouldn't face it. No, sorry, you know you should face it, but you don't. And you choose to numb yourself. Right? That any addictive behavior has that pattern. So again, this step is necessary because you realize that your fate is in your hands. That you can choose right now to take the higher road or take the road you've always taken of numbing yourself. So you can stay in the same level of the matrix, or you can go to the next level, but that next level is a direct result of you facing your pain. Okay. Level 3. Level 3 is what I call using the trigger to clear attachment and raise your consciousness. Okay. So now, when we're faced with the trigger of shame, of unworthiness, of all this stuff, when we can see that as an invitation to expand our consciousness, that's level 3, right? We actually use the trigger and process the trigger and heal the trigger as a way to uplift your consciousness. Okay, let me unpack this. Shame, guilt, fear, and anger are the lowest vibrational energies available to human consciousness. Literally, shame's the lowest, then guilt, then fear, then anger. So shame is the lowest vibration you can possibly have as a human being, and most of us live in shame. Okay? So these emotions have to be cleared from the system and processed so that we can go to a higher consciousness. And the highest level of consciousness is pure awareness, pure love. Okay? So in these moments, for instance, I'll be vulnerable and explain what I'm going through currently, is the unhealed version of lust, right? Lust at its core is feeling that your completeness or my completeness as a human being is dependent on sexual release, sexual validation, conquest, especially as a man. So then you use your partner as a way to fill yourself with what you've been missing. So you get a feeling of craving, of I need sex to feel whole. I need it. It's like a hungry, voracious monster. Every man has this in him. I'm having to face this, and I've had to face this my whole life. I was a porn addict for a long time. I've been a sex addict, when I was younger. But it took me facing it and saying, okay, why is this craving so intense? Sure, I'm a man. Sure, I'm young. Sure, my hormones are super high. Sure, I work out a ton. Sure, I fast a lot. Sure, I do ice baths. My testosterone is through the roof. However, at its core is that I felt so ashamed of myself as a man, thinking, how can this beautiful woman love me? That I needed sex to prove I'm worthy, right? So then I'm letting myself as a circle. I'm breaking it and needing validation to feel whole, okay? So either I sit there fighting myself. Level 2 is you become aware of that. I'm using sex as a way to like numb my shame. And then you feel the trigger of shame and the lust, and you sit there like, oh, why is this happening? Why do I feel this way? Why? And you get angry at yourself. The next level, level 3, is feeling like, oh man, for me personally, when I was growing up, I had really bad eczema. I was a little chubby. I was super shy and I'd stutter with girls. And whenever I would try and talk to them, they'd laugh at me, call me disgusting, run away. And I was like the laughing stock of girls. And that shit's for men, that just burns in your brain. That can create a whole villain origin story. So the core of my brain was developed by me thinking that women think I'm so disgusting that they'll laugh and run away. So that created this inherent shame in me that when I became attractive and went through puberty and learned how to talk to a woman and became emotionally intelligent, I then used sex as a way to prove I wasn't that. So now, instead of fighting myself and saying, you are worthy, what's going on? Why the f are you feeling this way? I have to sit in my body and say, okay, 10-year-old self, that was brutal. That shame you felt, that shit's rough. I love you. You're worthy. You're so awesome. Look at the man you are now. Look at yourself truly. Look at the man you are now. Let's have fun. I got you. You were always worthy of love. And then you start processing the shame. You really start feeling it. Like, I was so ashamed of myself. And you sit with it. You truly sit with it. You don't escape. You don't run. You sit with it. And when you sit with it, you heal it. Okay? Fear. When we're afraid of something, fear is actually an invitation to process something deeper. Okay? So if you fear, if you're in a relationship and you get anxious, right? And you're thinking, they're out too long. They haven't come back home yet. They're out partying, right? You think that. Sure, if you have boundaries that no partying, I get that. But if you don't, and you're young like I was, 19, 20, my ex-partners were out partying. I was like, well, what's going on? I'm going to die. That fear was hiding grief, abandonment. So it's actually when I went into what was underneath. Like, you don't actually fear anything, you fear an emotion, right? So if you're anxiously attached and you're afraid your partner's out doing nothing, they're taking too long and they haven't answered your text, you're actually afraid of the emotion of loss. So when you sit down and you sit with the emotion of loss and you process it and you feel it, you heal yourself, right? Healing is really feeling, okay? When you're in a trigger and you're trying to escape and you're in anxiety and you're afraid, take a step back and think, what am I afraid of, right? If I'm having a panic attack because the guy isn't texting me back, it's because I'm afraid of losing someone. And you step into grief, you step into loss, and you sit with that. And when you sit with that, the trigger releases itself, okay? So when a trigger comes and you have the temptation to go into a negative pattern, before, in step one, you would just jump to the pattern. Step two, you were aware of the pattern, but you sat in your discomfort and think, I can't do this, and you're fighting yourself. Now at level 3, when the trigger comes, you stop fighting yourself. You stop fighting yourself. Because the truth is that every emotion in you, every thought in you, every dark corner, every beautiful corner, it's all you. And if you only accept the happy thoughts, the sexy version of you, the party that feels confident, that's only a portion of you. If you reject the parts that are insecure, ashamed, afraid, in pain, you're rejecting half of you. And when you reject half of you, you're literally splitting from yourself. You have a part of you like and a part of you hate, which means your love for yourself is conditional. That you only love a part of you when you are a certain way. Remember what it was like to receive that from your parents, where they only loved you if you were a certain way. Now you're doing that to yourself. And what the self is, to Jungian psychologists, which is what I see as well, is that the self is you as one. You as everything. You as total. That you understand all of you and you love all of you. That's being the self, okay? So to get here, and that's why I think a core part of self-realization is you understand that you are one. That every part of you is you. Every party that's triggered afraid is you. It's still you, and every part of you deserves your love, okay? So in step level 3, you have a trigger of someone not texting you back. Your partner's angry at you, and you sit with your fear. You sit with your rage, and you think that it's my job to feel this, because when I feel this, I heal it. And the more you feel those triggers, the more the energy from your system leaves. But more importantly, that part of you that you once rejected your whole life and hated your whole life now begins to feel safe and loved. So the goal as a man or a woman is to be, if you're a woman, to be the loving divine mother to all parts of you. The goal as a man is to be the loving divine father for all parts of you. So parenting is really parenting yourself. And parenting yourself is accepting all parts of you with love. That doesn't mean you have to let them act out and lash out, but when you're triggered, you sit with yourself, and instead of thinking that the solution is out there, right? If my partner changes, if my partner does this, then I'll be okay, right? Let's use the texting example. If you're seeing someone and everything's going great and they don't answer your phone for 4 hours and you're thinking, you're panicked, you're afraid, the only solution for your ego is they answer back, right? So you're externalizing your own safety and you're rejecting yourself. The solution there in level 3 is you feel afraid they won't text you back. And you sit with yourself truly and say, how the is a powerful person like you, all loving, all beautiful, making your whole sense of identity dependent on someone else's text? That shouldn't happen. I'm not shaming myself. Let's sit with this feeling and process it. And once you process it, the trigger goes and we're complete. So level 3 is noticing that. Feeling that when you're in the king mode, when you're in queen mode, your center is within. You feel whole. When we outsource that, we need something outside of us to change for that wholeness to return, then we got to heal it. We got to feel what's causing us to believe we're separate, right? Any feeling of separation is the ego stuck in control. When we begin to feel whole, the ego's out of the question. We're in the self mode, right? So the goal is to use every trigger as a way to enter the self. And the self is us as one. We are one. We are everything. My psyche is I am love, right? But you only can get there when you stop rejecting yourself. You stop fighting yourself and you integrate all of you as one. Every part of yourself you hate is you. It's still you. Okay? So to keep going sequentially and summarizing each section, level 1, you were engaging in unconscious behaviors you had no idea you were doing, but aren't good for you. Level 2, you realize you're doing things that aren't good for you because you're numbing your pain. But you're still fighting yourself. You're in the trigger and you're fighting yourself and just like sitting in fear and rage, being like, why the fuck am I this way? Level 3 is to begin to use the trigger as a way to heal yourself, and healing is feeling. And the more you feel what you have to heal, the more you heal, and healing is eventually living a life outside the trigger. Okay? And that's level 4. Level 4 is life outside of the patterns. Okay? So level 4 is awesome. I hinted at it before, but it's a beautiful level, okay? So if you're someone who, I love this example because so many of us deal with it. If you're someone who used to get triggered all the time when your partner didn't answer your texts for hours, but they eventually did, and it was all good. And you're like, why the fuck was I so worried for 4 hours or 3 hours, however long it took? And then now the same thing happens and you're chilling. You're cooling. You don't give a. That's when you've healed, right? When you see the same thing that's triggered you your whole life is no longer triggering you. That's a beautiful feeling. And then you can feel this is what life is like. I'm now living, I'm not surviving, right? So the goal in life is to live. Living is being in the present moment, experiencing what's in front of you. Surviving is fighting what's in front of you because you need it to be a different way for you to feel safe. Living is feeling safe with whatever happens. Surviving is fighting whatever happens because you think that it changing will make you safe. Living is you're whole in and you're experiencing wholeness. Surviving is you're fragmented and you need something to change for you to feel safe. So the goal is to move from surviving to living. When you're living, you're whole, you're complete, you're immersed in the moment because the moment is enough. You're enough. So that's power. When you can see that your whole life's been dictated by a negative trigger and it's no longer controlling you, you can now live, right? And when you're living, then you can actually experience life beyond the limited persona. So again, to summarize each stage. Level 1, you're engaging in a behavior that's not good for you. You don't even know you're doing it, and you don't know why. Level 2, you figure out you're doing something that's not good for you. You know why, but you can't stop yourself from wanting to do it. You're stuck in the trigger. And you shame yourself, you hate yourself, you're angry at yourself because you keep doing the same thing, and you're where you shouldn't be doing it. Level 3, you begin to notice that I have to face what's making me feel like my wholeness is dependent on something out there. Out there consciousness is the primary sin of humanity. We believe that our wholeness, our fulfillment, our self is dependent on something out there changing. That is out there consciousness. That's the primary ingredient of Maya, of karma, of this inverted dimension. When that shifts, we play the inside game, the in there consciousness. In there consciousness is the key ingredient to surviving the matrix. Because in there consciousness is you knowing that my center is always within. Whenever I believe that my center is dependent on something changing outside of me, I'm stuck in the matrix. I'm an illusion. So when you understand the core truth that your center is always within you, and whatever is happening, it's your job to go within and heal it and become whole, that's when you master the matrix. You master the matrix when you stop believing that your wholeness is out there. And when you realize it's always in here, and any moment you have a trigger or fear or you have a craving, you go back to yourself and you feel my wholeness is always within. I'm stuck in Maya. I'm stuck in illusion. I have to come back home to my heart. When one gets good at that, they won the game. They've won everything. And they stop being run by triggers, craving, and attachment. And now it's time to let go. And this is level 5. Level 5 is self-realization. And that's what I call God mode. Let me unpack a bit before I unpack this part. That whole evolution, being an NPC, then discovering why you're doing something, then healing what's causing you to do it. Now it's time to actually live. That whole story you had about your trauma, of all this stuff, can go, right? So, for instance, I've dealt with the fear of abandonment my whole life. And that was essentially an inability to process my own grief, okay? So there was a process of me having to go, oh, I'm afraid of losing her. I got to process my grief. I got to sit with this. And then you do it enough times where you stop getting triggered. And you're in love. You're present. Now it's time to let go of the story. Let it go. Let it go. Whenever that little bubbling thought of fear of she's going to leave me, let it float. Let it go. You've healed it. Your life is beyond the story now. So God mode, self-realization, is life beyond stories. What are stories? Thought patterns. Thought patterns rooted in I am a separate person who needs something outside of me to change for me to feel safe. So the little game, the small game, the ego's game is out there consciousness. It's that something out there has to change for my ego, my thinking patterns, to return to positive thinking, right? And positive thinking is just that you think that what's happening is what's best for you. So that is the 3D game. That's the Maya. That's karma. That's ego game. When we expand that, it's when we realize that there is no separate me. My wholeness is always within. There's nothing out there that can make me feel whole. It's always inside me. When we're in that mode, that's God mode. God, to me, is the space between thought. I remember when I was first waking up and I asked my guru, I was like, what the f*** God? And I was expecting him to say some guy in the sky who's calling the shots, the creator of the simulation, whatever it may be. He told me it's the space between thought. And I sat there thinking, what the f*** is this guy talking about? It only made sense to me now. When you're in surrender, when there's no ego, when you're merged in the present moment, when you're one with nature, that's God. Because there's no you. You are everything. You are everything. There is no separate self. There is no you thinking I'm this little person who needs, sex, power, and money to feel whole. You are everything. When you're merged in the present moment and there's no you anymore, that's God. Okay? And people who are self-realized, avatars, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Shiva, there are people who've, Neem Karoli Baba, Ramana Maharshi, Ram Dass, there are people who have reached self-realization, and it's important getting familiar with their work, which means that they've stopped dreaming. And dreaming is the ego's dream. So reality just is reality, right? You're watching this podcast. The dreamer is when they take objective reality and make it mean something according to their own individual state. Okay? That's dreaming. When you're thinking things, you're literally creating a dream and projecting it on reality. Okay, so if you look at an art piece, it's just the art piece. The minute you start analyzing it and saying all these things, you're dreaming on a dream. And your dream is your thoughts, right? So life just is. It just is. The minute you start interpreting it and analyzing it as something more than that, you're not dreaming because you're projecting your own illusion onto a screen. Okay? That may sound like a lot to understand, but the goal in life, when you stop reincarnating, when you stop being stuck in the wheel of karma, in Maya, it's when you fully understand and master that you are complete, you are whole, there is no separate you. The party that's worried about something changing outside of you isn't real. The only thing that's real is awareness. And those who gotten there are Jesus, Buddha. And look at the impact they've had on humanity. So this is proven through science, is that when it's a book called Power versus Force, and they use kinesiology to measure what the highest level of frequency is in a human being. And they did tons of tests, tons of studies, and they found the lowest was shame. People who are stuck in shame have the lowest frequency, the lowest power in them. Those who have the highest power, it's not those who are the most loving, it's not those who are the most kind, it's not those who are the most joyous, it's those who are nobody. It's those who are literally embodying pure awareness. Those people tested off the highest possible frequency in humanity. That was Jesus. That was Buddha. Buddha has the highest frequency in humanity that ever existed with Jesus. They both understood that there was no them. Jesus said, I and the Heavenly Father are one. The Bible says, be still and know that I'm God. That is what's being taught here, is when you're in the frequency of stillness. If you really understand, I'm still, I know I'm God, and stillness is, my center is within me. Nothing out there can change my wholeness. When you're in that frequency, there's no individual separate self. When there's no individual separate self, you are pure awareness. And when you're pure awareness, your frequency is the highest it can possibly be in this dimension. Right? So again, shame is the lowest frequency. Pure awareness, pure consciousness is the highest frequency. So our goal is to move from shame to the highest frequency. And this process will get you there, which is, again, summarize. You've been engaging in a behavior that's addictive and negative. Level 2, you become aware you've been doing it, and you figure out why. But you're still stuck in it. You're stuck in the pain. You're stuck in this crossroads of, I really want to do this bad thing, but I know I can't, and you're fighting yourself. Level 3 is you heal the shame, the anger, the rage, so you can eventually live life away from the trigger. The next level is level 4, is that you start living life outside the pattern. But now you've got to lose the story. Lose the story. Because in reality, there is no story. It's just present moment. It's just now. But one can only get there if they've healed their body from all the shame, all the trauma that's been causing them to be stuck in the matrix. Because it's trauma that makes you believe that my safety, my wholeness is dependent on something out there to make me feel safe. Okay? And now level 5, which is to go from shame, NPC mode, to God consciousness, is having no mind. No separation. You are whole. You are one. It's always within you. When you're full, when you're complete, when your wholeness is within, when you're not thinking, you are everything. And when you are everything, you've won the game. There's no coming back here. There's no reincarnating. There's no more karma. There's no more desire. There's no more attachment. So this process will keep repeating itself over and over and over again. My clock is currently stuck on 4 for 4. Just so you know. This process will keep repeating itself over and over again, which is you will engage in something that you're unconsciously doing to numb yourself. You'll realize you're in pain. You have to heal the pain and then let go of the story. And that's a human journey. Okay? So to summarize again, you can move from limited human NPC to pure consciousness. The keys in your hands. And the keys are essentially you feeling what you've been denying yourself and rejecting yourself, because in reality, you are one. There's no darkness, there's no light, it's all one. Your shadow is you. Your light is you. It's all you. Everything is you. computer to this TV, everything is you. Everything is one. There is no separate self. The separate self is a thought in your mind that doesn't exist, okay? So, however, we're in this human experience to do the work it takes to become everything, okay? So God split itself into a million parts just to become God again. And the journey for each of us in this dimension is to use our humanity as a way to come back to consciousness, to come back to oneness. We're all one. Let's get there together. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to watch more content, please click this video right here and don't forget to subscribe right here. Thank you.